Today's file, Ota Benga. In 1906, a member of the Bambuti tribe in Congo was purchased from slave traders and brought to America. His name was Ota Benga, and he was to be displayed much like an animal at the Louisiana Purchase Exposition in St. Louis, Missouri. But this is just the start of Ota's dark and tragic history in the United States. Ota Benga was born in 1883 in the equatorial forests in the Free State of Congo. He lived near the Kasai River and eventually married and had 2 children. While out on a hunting expedition for his tribe, his wife and children were slaughtered by King Leopold II's force publique. Ota was eventually captured by slave traders from the Bashilele tribe. In 1904, Samuel Phillips Verner, an American businessman, traveled to Africa in search of pygmies to be part of the Louisiana Purchase Exposition in St. Louis, Missouri. While traveling to the Batwa Pygmy village, Verner came across the Bashilele slave traders who had Ota Benga. Verner gave the slave traders a pound of salt and a bolt of cloth in exchange for Ota. After reaching the Batwa village, Verner couldn't convince any villagers to come with him to America. At that point, Ota told the villagers that Verner saved his life and had formed a bond over the last few weeks traveling to the village. Eventually, some of the village men joined Ota and left for St. Louis in the United States. Sick with malaria, Verner didn't join the group at this time. The Louisiana Purchase Exposition in St. Louis, Missouri had already begun by the time the men arrived. They were on display for attendees of the exposition and soon became a very popular attraction. The men learned to perform and charge for photographs. Ota Benga was said to have charged 5 cents to patrons to see his sharpened teeth. After recovering from malaria, Samuel Verner arrived in St. Louis and quickly realized the men were more or less in prison. They weren't caged, but they also couldn't walk around the community without being constantly harassed by the citizens who deemed them savages. At one point, the 1st Illinois Regiment was called in to control the citizens. Samuel Verner and Ota Benga returned to Congo along with the other men. Ota joined Verner while he traveled Africa and later decided to return with him to the United States, as he no longer felt like he belonged in the Batwa village. When they arrived in New York City, Verner arranged with curator Henry Bumpus for Ota to stay in a spare room in the American Museum of Natural History. Ota worked at the museum for a while but soon started to miss his homeland and culture and regretted working there. In 1906, Henry Bumpus suggested to Samuel Verner that Ota should work at the Bronx Zoo. Soon after, William Hornaday, who was the director of the zoo, had Ota helping to maintain the animal enclosures. Visitors to the zoo seemed to be more interested in watching Ota as he maintained the enclosures, and Hornaday took note. Ota became part of an exhibit in the monkey house where Hornaday encouraged him to shoot his bow and arrow at a target and to interact with an orangutan named Dohong. Along with others, clergyman James H. Gordon protested Ota's exhibit, saying that it promoted Darwinism and that it was hostile to Christianity. Ota was eventually allowed to walk around the grounds of the Bronx Zoo, but it led to him becoming more mischievous and violent after verbal and physical attacks from zoo patrons. After being removed from the zoo, Ota was released into the custody of James H. Gordon, who then placed him into the Howard Colored Orphan Asylum in Brooklyn, New York. Several years later, Ota moved in with a family in Lynchburg, Virginia, and started to attend school to improve his English. Later, he was planning a return to Africa, but when World War I began in 1914, passenger ship travel stopped. Ota Benga became very depressed, and in 1916, at the age of 33, he borrowed a gun and shot himself in the heart. Ota Benga is buried in the White Rock Hill Cemetery in Lynchburg, Virginia.